everyone, welcome to my very late November book haul. This month I acquired 30 books, and I know that probably sounds like a lot of books, but that's really good for me. I think in October I bought 45, in September I bought 47, so 30 for me is actually really good. In December I'm aiming to only buy 20. I'm really trying to cut down on my book buying and get on top of all my unread books. I mean, that's never going to happen, but I just want to keep it at a manageable level, which I'm sure a lot of you can relate to. So without further ado, let's just get stuck into this. The first book that I acquired was The Girl Before by J.P. Delaney. This is a thriller, and I believe it follows a woman who moves into this kind of dream apartment. It's super minimalist, and it's really gorgeous. It's designed by this kind of mysterious architect, but to move in she has to follow a really strict set of rules, and she kind of discovers that the woman that lived there before her met with like an untimely death, and so I think she's just trying to unravel that mystery. The next book I picked up I've actually already read years and years ago, and that's The Miserable Mill by Lemony Snicket. I lost all of my childhood books when I moved from up the coast down to Sydney, so I lost all my original Harry Potters, my Lemony Snickets, just like every book that I own, which is obviously, you know, really sad, but I've been trying to pick them all back up in the same editions that I originally owned them in. So every time I find one of the old books which I really loved in an op shop, I just pick it up, and this time it was The Miserable Mill to add to my collection. The next book I picked up, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce, and that is The Blade of Fortru, I don't know, by Juliet Marillier. I'm a massive Juliet Marillier fan. I really want to meet her, and she lives in Australia, but she lives in Perth, which is really far from me. But hopefully one day I'll meet her. This is the second in a trilogy. I don't know too much about it because I haven't read the first, but I do own the first and the third, so I needed this to complete my set, and hopefully I can dive into this trilogy soon, because Juliet Marillier is so good. She writes about kind of Celtic folklore and fairy tales. She's just so good. I don't know why she's not more popular on YouTube. More people need to read Juliet Marillier. The next two books I picked up were kind of op shop finds, and that's Winter's Heart and Crossroads of Twilight by Robert Jordan. I'm nowhere near book 9 and 10 in the Wheel of Time. In fact, I haven't even started the Wheel of Time. I do want to start it. I think I own about the first 5, not in hardcover editions though, but I couldn't go past these amazing hardcovers. They were $5 each at the op shop. Normally in Australia, well, I mean, this one's still got its price tag on it, and it was originally $64.50. That's how much hardcovers cost in Australia. It's like insane how much hardcovers cost in Australia. So I couldn't go past these amazing editions for $5 each. I don't know how I'm ever going to be able to find the rest of the series in hardcover, but I couldn't pass it up. I just couldn't. The next two books I picked up were The Night is for Hunting and Burning for Revenge by John Marsden. Again, these were op shop finds. I'm trying to collect the whole Tomorrow When the War Began series. I'm only up to book 3, which I'm currently reading, and I want to get them all in hardcover, so whenever I see them, I'll pick them up. I think these are 5 and 6 in the series. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm not up to these yet, but it's good to have them there for when I am. The next book that I bought was Wicked Intentions by Elizabeth Hoyt. I've been getting into kind of trashy romance lately. I really have been loving Jess from Peace Love Books. Her recommendations, even though she reads books that are absolutely like not my genre, I would not dream of picking half of the books that she reads up. I really just love her channel. I love the way she talks. She's so passionate about the books that she reads and the authors. She was reading, I believe, like the 8th or something in this series, and it kind of intrigued me, so I decided just to pick up the first one and see if I liked it. I've been loving Tessa Dare lately, so we'll see how this one goes. The next few books I bought, I picked up at a book launch, which was the book launch for The Silver Well for Kate Forsyth and Kim Wilkins. Garth Nix was also there as the speaker, so I got to meet Kate Forsyth and Kim Wilkins. I also got to see Garth Nix. I've met him before, but I got to meet him again, which is always awesome because Garth Nix is amazing. Kim Wilkins is one of my favourite authors of all time. Again, I feel like she's super underrated. I haven't seen anyone reading her on BookTube. She's Australian, not very well known, but I own basically all of her books. I was that weird person at the book signing that had like a bag full of books and they were pretty much all Kim Wilkins books for her to sign. I also took along one Kate Forsyth for her to sign, even though I've never read any Kate Forsyth. I'm really keen to get into her. So this is The Silver Well. It's a short story collection based around this one well, and the stories go back in time. So there'll be like one from 1944, and then it'll go back. The next short story will be back, and then back and back and back, and you don't actually know who wrote which story. The whole thing really intrigues me. Obviously, I got it signed and personalized from Kim and Kate, which was really exciting, and I'm really keen to dive into this. This will probably be one of my next reads. At that same signing, I got the one book which I own by Kate Forsyth signed, which is Dragonclaw. This is the first in the Witches of Ellian. I think it's Ellian. I don't know if, I think it's a trilogy. I think this is her first book as well. So I took this along. Again, I got this signed by Kate. Kate and Kim are both ridiculously lovely people. So I'm excited to jump into my first Kate Forsyth. She is an Australian fantasy staple, so I have to get into her books really soon. The other two books which I bought and got signed was Lyriel and Abhorsen, obviously by Garth Nix. I read Sabriel earlier this year, which I also have signed and personalised by Garth from the first time that I met him. I got both of these signed and personalised as well, and they match my Sabriel. So now I have the whole trilogy in matching covers, all signed and personalised. So I'm super keen to dive back into this world and finish off the trilogy. Next book that I picked up was American Psycho by Bret Easton Ellis. This is a really kind of battered thrift shop edition, which I love. I love kind of this battered look, not for all of my books, but for some of them. And this was one that I really wanted to get this cover of, which is the original cover. So I'm keen to read this. Obviously, it's super well known. It's about a guy who is a serial killer. I've never seen the movie and I've never read the book, so this is going to be a whole new experience for me. The next book that I bought was one that I'm not sure I'm ever going to read, but I saw it in the op shop and I just had to pick it up because look at it, it is amazing. This is Passion Moon Rising by Rebecca Brandywine. This cover is so 80s, just trashy romance. It's got yellow edges, and on the back is a woman riding a unicorn. I don't know if I'm ever going to read this. I think it's actually got okay ratings on Goodreads. It's from like the 80s and it's fantasy, so I might pick it up, but I just bought it purely for the aesthetic. Like, it's just everything. This book I picked up was Needful Things by Stephen King. I've been loving Stephen King lately. I've read my first Stephen King this year, and then I've just been jumping straight into him. I've read several of his books now. I found this in the op shop, a nice hardcover of Needful Things. I think this is one of his more popular books, so I'm keen to get into it. This book I bought, I had actually already read, but I had a library copy, so I didn't actually own it, and that's Bird Box by Josh Malerman. I loved this when I read this. This is one of the first books I read this year. I loved it so much, it's so good. So I really wanted to own my own copy, and I finally picked it up. I think this is also becoming a movie, so I'll be keen to see that, because I think it's going to be like, it's one of those books that's going to translate really well into film. Next book I picked up was Tell the Truth, Shame the Devil by Melina Marchetta. I don't actually know what this one's about. I think that it's a thriller. I picked it up purely because of Melina Marchetta, who is an Australian writer, and I really, really love everything I've read by her. And I think this is fairly new. I think this is 2005. No, this is 2016. So this is, I think this is her newest release, and I've never read a thriller by her. I've only read her young adult, so I'm keen to get into it. The next book I picked up is actually an ARC copy, so it probably shouldn't have been at the thrift shop, but that is Thorn by Charlotte McConey. Again, this is an Australian author. I really love my Australian authors, obviously, and this is actually book 2 in the Chronicles of Kaya. I really, really want to read the first one, which I believe is called Avery. I can't find it anywhere. It's really hard to find a cheap copy, so I'm probably just going to end up ordering it and paying full price. It's got really good, I think it's got an over and a 4, it's like a 4 point something on Goodreads. So I don't know why it's not more popular. Obviously I don't know anything about this book because it's the second in a series, but I think the first one follows it's set in a world where people are kind of matched up with their partner, and they only have one partner for life, and if their partner dies, they also die. And then I think it follows a girl who her partner dies, but she doesn't die. That's all I know about it. That might not even be correct. So I'm really keen to get into the first book and then follow on with this, even if it is an uncorrected proof copy. Next book I picked up because I think I saw this on Samantha from Thoughts and Tomes channels, and she gave it a really good review. And that's Leviathan Wakes by James S.A. Corey. I don't know much about this except that it's a kind of epic sci-fi, and I really love sci-fi. I really love sci-fi, so I'm interested in that. I also got Deerskin by Robin McKinley. I have read one other book by Robin McKinley, which is Sunshine, which is about vampires, but not in your kind of Twilight vampires. It was, I don't know how to explain it, but it was just really, really good. And I bought it because, I bought this because I loved Robin McKinley's writing in Sunshine. Just the inner dialogue of the character was amazing. This follows a fairy tale retelling, I think, based on the fairy tale Donkey Skin, which I'm not actually familiar with, but I believe it's about a girl. So this is about a girl whose mother was the most beautiful woman in the kingdom. Her mother passes away, and before she dies, she tells her husband, the king, that he can't ever remarry unless it's a woman who is as beautiful as she is. And then when the daughter starts to grow up, she ends up being as beautiful as her mother, and therefore her father, the king, wants to marry her. She obviously doesn't want to marry her own father, and I think she runs away and goes on an adventure of some sort. Sounds really good, even if, it involves incest, but, I know Robin McKinley is kind of revered as a fairy tale retelling master, and this book has really good ratings. So yeah, the next book or graphic novel that I picked up is Exile by Diana Gabaldon. This is Outlander told from Jamie's perspective. Obviously I brought it because I freaking love Outlander, as you can see from my massive collection here. So this is to add to my collection. I have already read this, so you'll hear my thoughts on this in my wrap up, but it has really kind of beautiful artwork, which I think really kind of suits the story of Outlander. But yeah, it doesn't really go into anything new that you wouldn't get from reading Outlander, so you don't have to read this. I just want to kind of add to my collection. The next book that I picked up is a short story collection, and that's called Nightmares: A New Decade of Modern Horror. I believe this is mostly or exclusively Australian authors. I picked it up because of Garth Nix and Margot Lanigan, who I've read books by both of them and really enjoyed. I should have taken this to the signing and got Garth Nix to sign it, but I forgot. I think it just follows horror stories. I haven't read it yet. I don't read a lot of short story collections, and I know The Silver Well will be first on my list, but I'll be keen to get in this just because of the authors that I love. The next book that I picked up was a bit of a random one, and that's Naked in Death and Glory in Death by J.D. Robb, which is a pseudonym for Nora Roberts. These are her kind of crime fiction books. I've never read anything by Nora Roberts, and to be honest with you, I don't really have a desire to, but I've kind of been getting a little bit more into crime fiction. So I am kind of keen to pick these up. I'm just going to give them a try. I paid like $4 for this from the op shop, and it's 2 books in one. So I'll give it a try. If I like it, I like it. If I don't, then I can always give it back to the charity shop. The next book I picked up is Lifeblood by Gina Showalter. I have not a great relationship with Gina Showalter because a couple of the books that I've read by her have been just fucking terrible. But I did then, and I was like, this is the last chance I'm giving her when I read the first book in this series, which is called First Life. I enjoyed First Life, so I was like, okay, cool, I'm gonna pick up the second one, and so I got Lifeblood. Haven't read this yet. Basically this world follows, it's kind of set in this world where you have your first life, and during your first life you have to commit to either like these 2 factions, and you kind of sign a contract with them, and then you die, and then you live a second life, and you'll be on either side of the faction, and they're at war with each other. And if you don't sign, then you kind of just go to limbo, nowhere land. So this kind of follows the events after the first book, which I don't want to give anything away, but I found it interesting enough to pick up the second one. The next books I picked up were Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone and Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, the illustrated editions. These are beautiful. I've wanted these for a while. They're really quite expensive though. I bought these because Book Depository was having a 10% off sale. Book Depository rarely has sales, so I thought I'd take advantage of that and get these amazing editions. So I think I ended up paying about $34 for them. Which is really good. You've probably seen, heaps of people show these off. They're absolutely stunning. Of course, I've already read Harry Potter, but I kind of bought these. This is going to sound so silly. I kind of bought these with the dream of one day being able to read these editions to my future children. I've already made up my mind that my future children will not be watching the Harry Potter movies before reading the books, and these will be the books that I read to them when they come of age. Not that they're even conceived yet. Next two books are more Gina Showalter books, which I randomly decided to pick up when I found them in an op shop, and that's Heart of a Dragon and Jewel of Atlantis. These look fucking terrible, to be honest with you, don't they? I mean, they don't look great. I think they're just kind of your trashy romance. The only thing that made me pick them up is the fact that they're set in Atlantis, and I love Atlantis. There's not enough books set around Atlantis. If anyone knows of any really good books set around Atlantis, please let me know, because that's one of my favorite kind of myths ever. I spilt water all over this one when I was moving stuff in my car. But that's alright, because I don't really care, because these aren't that great anyway. I'm going to give them a chance. I'll give the first one a chance. If I don't like it, then I'm just going to donate these straight back to the thrift shop in slightly worse condition than I picked them up. Oops. We're nearly done. The next book that I picked up is The Unbecoming of Mara Dyer. I've been interested in reading this book for years. I mean, obviously it's been around BookTube for years. I found this cheap. I thought I'd pick it up. I'm going to give it a go. If I like it, I like it. If I don't, I don't. I'm not a huge YA reader, but this one actually generally gets pretty good reviews, so I'm going to give it a go. And we're finally there at the end. The last book that I picked up is actually 4 books in one, and that's the Buckman books by Stephen King. I read The Long Walk by Stephen King, and 5 stars. It's probably now one of my favorite books of all time. I highly recommend you read it. It's not that long. It's a really quick read. So once I had read that, I wanted to pick up the rest of the Buckman books. There's actually more than, I think there's 6 Buckman books in total. But these are the first 4 that he released when he was still, like, nobody knew that Richard Buckman was Stephen King.